Hey everyone. In this video, I want to talk about my experience with the sunk cost fallacy, specifically regarding reading a book series and just reading in general. Right now, I'm playing EverQuest in the background while I'm just gonna be rambling about these things. And I think EverQuest and the MMO genre in and of itself is very guilty of activating the sunk cost fallacy within me. So I'll probably relate what I'm talking to gaming in general, and more specifically MMORPGs, because they are such a time sink, and yeah, they just require so much time to be able to progress or achieve most things within the game. And maybe as I talk about this more in this video, it's more of a self brainstorm that I'm sharing publicly. So that's pretty much what this video is. Maybe I'll learn something. Maybe I will have some sort of insight about consuming things and the time it takes to consume things, and how it's okay to accept and let go of things, or especially take breaks for certain periods of time. It's all, maybe I'm already coming to an insight right now. But first, I want to talk about reading. I've always enjoyed reading. However, I took a long break from reading throughout most of college and most of high school as well. I used to read a lot when I was a kid, especially in middle school. I loved reading. I loved reading just interesting fiction books. I didn't really read much nonfiction unless it was required for a class or something. But it was something I always enjoyed. And I think gaming took it substituted a lot of my time growing up. And so I kind of clung to gaming instead of reading, because I think it was a better outlet to hang out with friends, and honestly, it's just more gratifying to the senses, especially growing up where I think a lot of the nuance of books and using your imagination, it's easier to just play a video game and go through a story than to read a book. And so I just mainly consumed video games as my source of entertainment and shows and stuff. But it wasn't until about a year and a half ago, pretty much right after I graduated college, where I started to get into reading more, and intentionally reading more, just to kind of fill that desire back into my life. And I talked about this in one of my previous videos about, I believe I titled it How I Enjoyed Reading Again, how I started to enjoy reading again. And I think with that, reading all of a sudden became one of my favorite hobbies, like my favorite pastime. And I just instantly felt like I was doing something that something deep within me always wanted to do again, which was to sit down and learn and use my imagination and read books. And it felt like it was filling a part of myself that didn't know it needed filling. I don't know. And with that, I kind of started reading again with the A Song of Ice and Fire series by George R. R. Martin, the Game of Thrones series. And those books were and are just masterfully written. And they have so much depth and nuance and complexity, and so much went over my head. And it felt like I was delving into a universe that was much greater than myself. Just so much more complex than I could imagine. And how I was kind of in awe of the experience of being able to witness and participate within this universe that had so many gradients of emotion and intellectualization and just moving parts that just completely fascinated me. And I just, especially being a fan of the Game of Thrones series growing up, watching the TV show and everything, reading the books was to the next level of my enjoyment watching the show. And I really built it up as a kid. Like when I was growing up, I knew my dad, he read the books. And so I always kind of like wanted to read the books to be able to have like a talk with him about it, or just have like a cool discussion about like being able to share that experience of reading the book or the books. But I don't feel like at the time I had the patience or my own conscious development yet to appreciate the book. I read the first one when I was 15, and I think I liked the first book because it was very similar to the first season of the show, and so I think there was a lot of parallels to be able to kind of understand. But as I was reading it with a very surface level awareness of it, of the characters, of the motions, of the plot itself. I didn't really appreciate the underground emotionality of everything that was running around. And I still think that I'm not quite there yet with my full appreciation of the story. And I'm definitely gonna read through the series again. I kind of started reading the first book again. But I kind of gave up after the second book when I was like 15. And I didn't really read much in between those periods. I read like the Strain series. It's like a horror vampire series, and a few other books here and there, but nothing very crazy. And reading, I kind of picked up right where I left off in the second book, Clash of Kings, when I was right after I graduated college. So I would have been like 23. And it just swept me off my feet. The story, the characters, I feel like, just my own personal development and experiences in life just so far, I feel like it really helped me appreciate the books even more, and the dynamics of the characters, and just viewing society and everything, and religion, and just all these different philosophical like notions. I just kind of began to see the series in a new light. And anyways, as a very long segue, I think that shaped my view of reading books in my kind of renaissance of reading. It was such a tremendous story, and I use tremendous in a very underwhelming kind of sense, like beyond tremendous. Just a fantastical story, and it really shaped the way I viewed literature after that point, because that was my main reference point getting back into reading, was A Song of Ice and Fire. And so I've read a lot of books since then. I've read, for fantasy-wise, I've read like the Mistborn series. I read the first 3 books of the Stormlight Archive. Those are just kind of like fantasy series that kind of fit somewhat within the notion of A Song of Ice and Fire, which I disagree that it could really capture that feeling and that depth that I got from A Song of Ice and Fire. And that's something else I want to talk about in the video. This is going to be a very ranty video, or just not, I wouldn't even say rant. Like, I don't want it to be negative or anything, but just kind of like a self-inquiry kind of discussion. And so this video might go all over the place, but that's kind of where I started reading again. Like the Mistborn series I picked up right after A Song of Ice and Fire, and I immediately noticed a complete distinct difference between George R. R. Martin's writing style and Brandon Sanderson's writing style. And that's when I began to really appreciate the differences of authors, and the differences of word and diction and prose, and how how much different the experience between books can be. And I also have read some psychological and spiritual books as well, like Eckhart Tolle, Adyashanti, and just some other books as well that don't necessarily fit within the framework of just like fantasy, just like contemporary fantasy. I also read the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which was really, really fun to read through. I barely even watched the movies, so being able to read the books with kind of a fresh take of the world, I knew the bits and pieces of it, like the main storylines of Frodo and Gandalf and Samwise and the Ring and all those kind of things, but I didn't actually understand the story. I barely even watched the movies. So every time I finished the book, I would read the movie that accompanied that. And that was such a magical experience. That's definitely one of the highlights of 2025 for me, was reading Lord of the Rings and watching the movies alongside that. Let me look at my bookshelf again. I also recently I read The Will of the Many. That was a pretty good book. I really enjoyed the dark academia theme. It kind of reminded me of like Harry Potter, as well as kind of Mistborn as well. It had just cool powers but what I'm saying here is, for me at least, nothing quite came close to A Song of Ice and Fire. And I feel like I'm still chasing that dragon of reading a book that is so complex and has so much nuance and just realism, but also very much fantasy. And right now, I'm going through A Song of Ice and Fire Renaissance once again. I just finished last month the Night of the Seven Kingdoms, the Dunk and Egg story, and I loved kind of just hopping back into Westeros again. It got me so much more intrigued in the Targaryens and like the Blackfire Rebellion, and just getting back into that world and learning more about the history of it. And right now I'm reading Fire and Blood, which is the historical fictional book about the Targaryen dynasty, starting from Aegon's conquest and up to the end of the Dance with Dragons. And that has been just so awesome to be able to read. And I guess what I wanted to talk about in this video was taking a break and even quitting books while you're reading them, like DNFing books. And it's something I've really been struggling with. It's something that I think that's the thesis of my video that I didn't even get to until right now. I've been really struggling with the notion of kind of giving up on a series. And that series for me right now is the Stormlight Archive. And I feel very conflicted. I really enjoyed all three of the first three books. I really enjoyed them. However, I saw that it would never come close to how A Song of Ice and Fire kind of touched my heart. I love Brandon Sanderson and his work and his characters. I've had so many emotional moments reading the Stormlight Archive, and just about persevering and connecting and, trying to fighting through depression and just all those things. I think there's some really good themes in Stormlight Archive, and that's why the story, it will always have a good part of my heart, But I feel like as soon as I started reading Rhythm of War, it felt like something was off about the story that didn't quite grapple with me. It didn't quite grab me. And I think that doesn't have as much to do with the book as much as it has to do with myself and my own experiences and my own current state of consciousness or something like that. I don't think I'm as receptible to the story right now, and I may be in the future. But it feels weird. It feels kind of wrong. I feel like I should be enjoying this book. I should be wanting to read it. I do want to read it. But at the same time, I'm not enjoying when I do read it, and it feels more like a burden on my mind to read it versus just something to do for enjoyment's sake. And I think a big part of this video that I want to talk about, I say that a lot in this video, is letting go. The acceptance of letting go. Even if it's not forever, but especially if it is forever. Because in the end, that's what life is. We experience things and we share moments with people in our lives and places and things. But there's always an end to things, to life. And it's difficult to come to terms with that on its own basis of just impermanence. And symptoms of that for me come up when it comes to these kind of media consumption, reading books, playing video games, making characters in a MMO. They all come with an emotional imprintment. I don't know if that's the correct use of that word, imprintment, or an emotional imprint. I think that probably makes more sense. Where every time I participate in read a book or participate in creating a character or participate in writing more of my book or participate in putting energy into anything, I am putting myself within that moment into that thing emotionally, and however much I'm putting my life energy into these things. And so when it comes to the fact that I'm not enjoying putting my energy into something anymore and letting go of something that I put in the past so much energy into, it almost feels like in a sense that I'm letting go of myself. I am killing off a part of myself. And that is a very attached perspective to have, I feel like. It's a very emotionally immersed sense of consciousness within a potential future outcome of something. And I think that's where a lot of suffering comes from. And I see that when I'm reading Stormlight Archive on Rhythm of War, Book 4, and I'm not really enjoying it, and I feel there's some sort of peace within me that is saying maybe it's time to take a break or to give this up, at least for now. There's a resistance within myself that wants to fight that and be like, no, I enjoyed this so much in the past. I'm going to keep enjoying it now. I'm going to keep reading it, and I'm going to get as much fulfillment out of it as I did before. When in reality, that isn't unfortunately the case. And that creates a ripple and a division between myself, a part of myself that has some sort of a known sense that maybe it is time to let something go. And then the egoic sense of wanting to hold on and keep within and not let go. And I think it's such a good learning opportunity to learn to let go, to learn to give up things that you may have enjoyed and you may have put so much time into, with this, especially regarding the sunk cost fallacy. And ultimately succumbing to the rhythm of life. And I feel that a lot when it comes to this own YouTube channel that I have. I think lately I have been struggling because I've made so many videos in the past. and I've enjoyed making videos so much. And there's parts of me that want to keep making videos because I enjoyed it so much in the past. But then there's a big part of me that is at some sort of peace with the fact that naturally right now my inclination doesn't energetically align with making videos, especially related to EverQuest. And ironically, I'm making this video right now within EverQuest, playing it, but it's not really about EverQuest. And I think a lot of my videos aren't actually about EverQuest, but they're about the... EverQuest is the theme. It is the picture. It's the painting that my videos are. But what I really want to talk about is not the painting, it's the canvas that is underneath the painting. And that is very much the essence of life and flowing with change and letting go and recognizing to how you are immersing yourself within things, within the structures of life. And I think some of my videos, I have began to get lost in the painting and not the canvas. And I think that is a good indicator to take a break from at least showcasing the painting. Because when I began to make videos, I began to make videos as a little kid for fun. Little short films and just a source of expression. That's always what it's been. And I think for me, that has deviated a bit out of where I initially feel naturally it should be. And with that, with this channel, I think you should expect to see some changes in my videos. I don't think I've been as authentic as I'd like. When I make videos, I have a certain persona where I want to relay thoughts. And there will always be some sort of inauthenticness in that because I am performing. I'm speaking to a camera and I'm relaying something. It is from one end to the other, one channel outward. I think there's always some sort of division between myself, my authentic self, and the message being portrayed and the way I facilitate that. And I accept that. However, I think that I could do a better job, or I want to do a better job, being more authentic and being myself and really not letting other people's thoughts have an effect on my actions. I think I've been afraid to go outside the box and afraid to do things differently than I have been doing them because I've always been some sort of a people pleaser and wanting to do things that other people will enjoy or like, to be liked. I think I'm afraid of being disliked. And that creates a very restrictive outflow of creativity. That's a good insight. See, when I made this video, when I was initially talking, I wanted to find some sort of insight. And funnily enough, the insight didn't really have anything to do with the initial intention of what I wanted to talk about, which was the sunk cost fallacy. But at the same time, it kind of does, if it all revolves towards that end. And I really enjoy making videos like this where it's a free flow talk just about life doesn't have to relate to something specific. I think that's where my voice and my thoughts in my videos are flowing towards, is speaking about life. And I think it doesn't have to be about EverQuest, but I like to talk about it within the framework of EverQuest because EverQuest is what I love. And there's so much you can learn about yourself as a person and about life through playing EverQuest. That's a huge reason why I love playing it so much. I always learn new things about myself. And I'll talk about some of those insights right now. I think lately, I've noticed some of my behaviors in game. How I don't put my all into things sometimes. Because I don't want to put my all into something because I don't want to get let down, or I don't want to feel like it's an obligation or a commitment. It's like a fear of commitment to time. And I think as well as a relationship with others and being in a team. And I had a really good reflection point about my own desires to play the game. Have I been funneling my own unconscious behaviors into how I play this game? Am I playing this game through a lens of unconsciousness, of complete egoic desires? And am I not practicing what I'm preaching in my videos? I don't think I am. I think my videos are more of a thought exercise, but I haven't been actually actualizing what I've been talking about. And that's okay. I don't have to actualize what I speak about within my videos. I'm not preaching anything really. I'm just kind of having mental exercises and free flow talk. My videos, I've never intended for them to be hyper edited or super cut and paste and flashy. If I feel the calling, I will edit. I will create little EverQuest edits within the beginning of my videos, but I always wanted to make my channel authentic in the sense that I'm just speaking my mind to the best that I can. And kind of just a human expressing themselves outward to other humans. And finding some sort of pieces of myself by doing that. I've always been very introverted. I've always been very quiet and shy, and that's something EverQuest has revealed to me even more. Because when I make these kind of videos, really I'm just sitting in a room by myself and speaking to the void. I'm speaking to a camera, or to a microphone pretty much. And it's really cool that people can listen to my videos and give feedback and create a community within that. And I've always been so appreciative of that and being able to connect with others through that. But I think at the same time, I've been limiting myself in my ability to connect with others. It's been a one-way conversation in my videos. And that's okay. But I think it would be cool to interact more with other people and maybe have more of a dialogue with others. And I think I'm beginning to open myself up to that more. I've seen comments in the past about having a podcast with someone or just talking with people. And I haven't been very receptive to that at the time because I didn't feel comfortable at the time. But I feel like I'd like to challenge myself more in that, in opening myself up to dialogue with others about EverQuest or about anything really. And if you're still watching this video and you're interested in having a talk or anything, I am open. Feel free to comment in the video and we can figure something out. But yeah, I'd like to just be more open and connecting and less of a one-way dynamic. challenging my introvertedness, my own quietness. Because I'll be in a raid chat or in a Discord call, and I just notice in myself how quiet I am and how contrasting that is between the version of myself right now that is having an open dialogue, and how maybe I can bridge a gap between those versions of myself. It's been a half hour of me talking, and that's usually when I see that's usually the time I'll probably end talking. But I really hope you enjoyed listening to me ramble or found some sort of insight within it for yourself, or just was entertained by the white noise of my talking. I really appreciate you watching these videos and just sticking by me. I've been making videos for like a year and a half now about EverQuest, and it's really sparked a lot of my own creative expression of just being able to talk about stuff. And I'm very appreciative of that. And all the YouTube things, the YouTube stuff you're supposed to say, like, subscribe, comment, it always helps out the channel, but definitely not necessary. And I'm just coming to more and more as I make these videos, I'm coming to the conclusion that these videos really are just a way for me to learn more about myself. And if anybody finds anything positive that can affect them or have a positive impact on anyone else, that is a dividend. That's a bonus. But anyways, I will leave it at that. Introspective Decius, signing out. Peace, everyone.